Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and in this video what I want to do is just talk a little bit about models conceptually. So when you're designing your application, specifically in the back end, there's this structure called models, views, controllers. Okay? And let's just sketch that out. Models. Okay. Models. And we'll just make this look a little bit nicer. Models. And let's just change the color of this box. Oh no, that's not the nicest color of yellow. That's a bit better. Let's center it. Models. And what models are is the types of information your application tracks. Okay? Essentially, the data. C. Then there is views. Okay, this is your front-end application. This is how the data is presented to the user. Okay? So essentially, your website. So think, and then what would you use to build your front-end website would be things like React, Vue, Angular, Svelte, Stencil.js, jQuery. These are all different frameworks for building out that front end. Okay, and again, models, this is the data which you would store and retrieve from a database like Mongo, Postgres. You guys get the idea. And then there's controllers. Okay, models, views, controllers. Okay, and controllers is how basically the middleman that sends data from the database to the front end and receives info from the front end and stores it in the database. It basically runs back and forth between the views and the models. Okay, and this is your server. Server and the routes your server has, which could be done if you're looking at Node, you're probably doing it in Express or Koa or Sales or Full TS. These are all JavaScript backend frameworks. Or if you're doing it in Python, you're probably using Flask or Django. If you're using Ruby, you're probably using Sinatra or Rails. Okay? Bottom line is you have some sort of back-end framework that acts as the glue. Okay? And here I'm assuming a single-page application, so I'm assuming like React handles your front end, and it's sending requests to your server grabs information from the database, so the controllers are the glue, MVC. Okay? That's the glue between the views. So the views never talk to the database. Your React application never directly talks to your Mongo database, and your Mongo database never talks to your React application. They all interact with your backend server, your controller. Okay? So that's the way to think about the application. But more so what I wanted to talk about was the whole concept of models. Like, how do you think about designing the models in your application? Okay, so let me just run through an example. Okay? So here is my Mongo database. So we'll do that as a circle. Okay, so let's pretend this is my Mongo database, or just my database in general. Okay. So again, if it's a Mongo database, each collection of data is referred to as a collection. If we're referring to a Postgres database, an SQL database, each collection of data is referred to as a table, kind of like an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, but bottom line, that data is all stored on the database. So let's say I have to think about sort of what are the types of things that my application has. So each thing is a model. So for example, let's pretend I'm creating a mini social network. One model would be users. Okay, so let's make that more orange. Users. Okay, and then I would have to design what a user has. Now a user may have several properties. Okay, and I'll do that in a smaller font. So users may have something like a username, a password, okay, and They may have photos that they're associated with, videos that they're associated with. Actually, I'm going to do this slightly different just to keep this simple. So we'll say username and a password. We'll leave it at that. Now, the different properties of that particular model is referred to as its schema. So the schema is the definition of that type of data. Okay? And so now that we've created this model, this particular model is going to get its own collection in my Mongo database, or its own table in my SQL database. Okay, so think of it as like one Google Sheet. Think of it as like one Google spreadsheet. So I have one spreadsheet that keeps track, that lists all my different users and their username and password. But what if my users are allowed to have a photo? Okay, they're allowed to upload photos. So that's a different type of piece of data. Okay, so in that case, I may have a photos model, which one field is the image, it's the link to where the image is stored. Okay, and another field may be the user, like the username of the user who uploaded the photo, so I can track which photos belong to which user. Okay, and then that would get its own collection or table in my database. Okay, and because I keep track of the username, a user can have as many photos as they want, but every photo only belongs to one user. This is what's referred to as a one-to-many relationship. So let me create another little line. Okay, line. I'll do this here. I didn't want to do it like that. I will do it like this. Okay, and then we'll make that a red line being a relationship. Well, let's make that a better color. Let's make that the bright green. Okay, so there's a relationship between these two pieces of data. Okay, photos can't exist without a user, but they're saved in two separate parts of my database. So there's a collection of photos where I can look up every photo and it has a list of which user belongs to. But if I want to find more information on the user, I'd have to go over to the user's collection or table to find that information. Then maybe on top of photos, maybe they also have videos. Okay, and once again, would be the same idea. The schema for videos would be, a link to where the video is stored on our server or on our storage space where we store our videos, which could be like an S3 bucket on Amazon or something. So a link to the actual video, and then the username of the user who uploaded it. So that way we can keep track of which user uploaded which video. Okay, we're creating that relationship again. Okay, so then we create another line. And there we go. And then again, that also has a relationship to user. But videos have no relationship to photos. Okay, it's all related to the user. Okay. But then we may have a table called groups. Okay, so that's another thing in our app. We have groups. So that's going to be a separate thing we're keeping track of. So every time you have like a thing you're keeping track of, that becomes a singular model. Okay, so we're keeping track of groups. Now, a group can have lots of users. Okay. A group can have lots of users. So we have to have like a property called users. Who are the users in the group? Which is not one user's username, but like an array of many users. Okay. And we'll just say that's the only property. So we see which users are in that particular group. But then users can be parts of many groups. So we probably should keep track of what groups they're in over here. So that'll be an array of groups, like list of which groups they're in. Okay. And then again, this list of groups will also get their own table, their own collection. And then this has what's called a many-to-many relationship. Okay. A many-to-many relationship, which will make purple. Okay, a many-to-many relationship means that both can be related. So again, a group can have many users, and a user can be part of many groups. So they both can have more than one of the other. Okay, so that's a many-to-many relationship for data. So again, you want to think about sort of like what are your different types of data and how they relate to each other. So again, a user can have many videos, but every video belongs to one user. So that's a many-to-one relationship. photos. A user can have many photos, but every photo can only belong to one user. That's a many-to-one relationship. And my groups, well, a group can have many users, and a user can have many groups. So that's a many-to-many relationship. Okay? So regardless of what kind of database you're using, it's just kind of having that concept of how your data relates to each other and what are the different types of data you have to keep track of, and keeping track of them in different units. Okay, so hopefully this helps you understand sort of the idea of models a little bit better when creating your back-end applications. And it helps you think through how you're going to build out your application. Because once you kind of see how what are your different pieces, so you have to think of it like you're setting a stage, and you want to make sure you set up all the buckets you need to store all the things you need. So that's why it's really important to take the step of thinking through how your data is structured before you actually code or build an application. Okay, if you just build something without thinking about how your data is stored, you're going to find yourself having to do a lot of refactoring of things that are going to make things take a lot longer than they would have otherwise been. And sometimes even just rebuilding the whole app, because the original way you built out your data structure is just so unworkable with features you wanted to add later on, because you didn't take the time to kind of think about how things are fit together, and not only how they fit together, but do you set them in a way that I can then, because if I could just literally build a user and then put all the photos and videos in user, okay, but then maybe later on I want to create group videos, and so maybe I want to change the way the data relates to each other, but because I put them all in one model, it becomes harder to do that. So you want to kind of create all these like little individual pieces that stand apart, that represent the types of data that you might want to reuse in different ways, use in certain ways, and how they relate to each other. So hopefully you found that useful. My name is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com. Have a great day and enjoy.